Okay, so you know how we like to do these deep dives, right? We take what you send us and try to get to the bottom of it.
Mm.
And this time, someone sent in something pretty interesting about EON Reality
Mm-hmm.
and their new thing called the Entrepreneur Guide.
Yeah.
It uses an AI mentor named Brainy.
Wow.
So what we really want to do today is cut through all the hype, you know. What does this actually mean for you? For anyone who wants to get a handle on how businesses might change in the future.
Right.
Because the sources we got suggest that it's not just another one of those planning tools.
Mm-hmm.
This could be something much bigger.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at what they're saying, it really seems like they're trying to flip the script entirely, right? Like moving past the typical roadblocks that people hit when they're starting a business.
Totally.
I mean, think about it. You're trying to launch this new venture, right? You're excited about it, but you're also fighting with some clunky software. You're feeling kind of alone.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you probably don't even know about half of the resources that are actually out there to help you.
So frustrating.
It is. And the limitations they talk about in these sources, like the mental overload and the emotional roller coaster with zero support.
Mm-hmm.
And just trying to figure out how to actually use the platform you're on, those are all very real problems for anyone who's starting out.
Yeah. You can get stuck before you even get started.
Exactly.
So what they're suggesting here with Brainy is that there might be a way around all of that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's dig into this revolutionary part, shall we? At the center of it all is this AI mentor, this Brainy.
Right.
So what's the difference between this and just, asking Siri or something for business advice?
That's the thing they really hammer home in the source material is the feeling of a real back and forth, like a real conversation.
Okay.
It's like being on a video call with a business coach. Someone who's been there and done that.
Gotcha.
And that's what Brainy is trying to do with its photorealistic avatar. This isn't just, words on a screen.
Yeah.
Brainy has facial expressions that look real body language, even a little visual cues that change with the tone of the conversation. Interesting.
Think about it. Like when you're talking to someone in person, how much are you picking up from their body language? Like the little things they do.
Oh, tons.
Right.
Right.
This is bringing that to AI.
It's like that human element is still there, even if it is AI.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so this virtual coach walks you through a structured process, right? They called it a 10-step business development journey.
Mm-hmm.
What does that actually look like?
So it's a really comprehensive roadmap. It starts with these big fundamental questions like discovering your purpose.
Okay.
Really zeroing in on why you're doing this in the first place.
Right.
And then it moves you through these critical stages, problem identification and feasibility assessment. So figuring out if your idea actually has legs to stand on. And it goes all the way to the very practical stuff like functional application creation. So Brainy is there as your guide through all these steps.
From the big picture thinking to actually building an app or whatever it is you're making, it's a pretty wide range.
So obviously there's some serious tech behind all of this, behind this lifelike mentor and this journey.
Oh, absolutely.
Can you break it down for us? What's powering Brainy?
So there are like 4 main pillars to the technology.
Okay.
The first one is photorealistic video generation.
Okay.
Now, this isn't just pre-recorded stuff they're playing back. Brainy's responses are created in real time from what you're typing.
Wow.
And they're using these really advanced diffusion-based neural networks. It's like an AI artist learning to paint. It takes a blurry image and slowly makes it clearer.
Interesting.
And that's how they make the video frames.
Okay.
They're also using something called FACS integration, which stands for Facial Action Coding System.
FACS?
Yes. And this is wild. It's like the AI understands how human facial muscles move to make expressions.
Okay.
Like a little eyebrow raise or a tiny curve of the lips. That's all FACS.
Wow.
And Brainy uses it to make these very subtle expressions that make it feel so much more natural.
So it's creating its own video right there as you're talking to it.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
It is.
Okay, what's the next piece of the tech puzzle?
The second big thing is comprehensive memory architecture. And this goes way beyond remembering your last question.
I would hope so.
Brainy have total recall of every conversation you've ever had with it.
Whoa.
So they've built this sophisticated system with relevance-based retrieval, which means it knows which information is important and which is just kind of background noise.
Huh.
And it organizes everything with a hierarchical memory structure.
Okay.
Like our own memories, right? You've
Yeah.
got episodic memory for specific events, semantic memory for general knowledge, and then procedural memory for knowing how to do things.
Yeah.
Brainy does all of that. It even automatically organizes the information and remembers how you felt about certain things.
So it's like having a mentor who remembers every single thing you talked about so you don't have to re-explain everything every time.
Exactly. That's the idea.
That is huge. Okay, so what about the mental and emotional side of starting a business? It can be really tough.
Oh, absolutely.
And the source mentioned an emotional intelligence framework. How does an AI even begin to handle something like emotions?
That's what I thought was so cool. So Brainy can figure out your emotional state from your text, your voice, even your video, if you choose to turn that on. And then it uses what it learns to basically offer adaptive empathy.
Adaptive empathy.
Yeah, it changes how it responds based on what you need emotionally.
Wow.
They're even using evidence-based psychological support techniques to build your confidence and this relationship-based motivation.
Interesting.
It's really trying to give you that emotional backing that a human mentor would, especially when you're hitting those inevitable bumps in the road.
So it's as much about supporting the person as it is about making the plan.
Yeah.
I like that.
Like,
All right, what about that last piece of tech?
right, so the fourth pillar is the seamless XR integration. This is where EON Reality's history with virtual and augmented reality comes in.
Ah, I see.
So you're having this conversation with Brainy, and then boom, you can jump right into these immersive learning experiences. And the XR content is tailored to what you're actually discussing, and Brainy's right there with you in those virtual environments.
That's crazy.
Like you could be talking about a product design, and Brainy might say, hey, let's step into a virtual space and look at a 3D model together.
Wow.
It's blending conversation with hands-on immersive learning all in one.
That's powerful stuff.
It is.
Okay, so this all sounds amazing in theory, but what does it actually mean for, the person listening to this right now?
Yeah.
Like, what are the actual benefits? Because the source we got had some really interesting data comparing this avatar-guided approach to the old school ways of doing things.
The efficiency gains are pretty massive. They're talking about a 60% reduction in the time it takes to develop a business concept.
60%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Think about what that means for someone starting out. You go from an idea to a solid plan almost twice as fast. That means testing things out and making changes on the fly.
That's a game changer.
It is. And they also found an 86% increase in how long people would actually stick with the sessions, and a 91% task completion rate. It seems like people are way more focused and productive when Brainy's guiding them.
Those are some impressive numbers. Okay, but what about the learning curve? Sometimes business software can feel like a whole other obstacle you have to overcome.
Right. And they address that directly.
Oh.
They found a zero learning curve with natural dialogue.
Zero.
Because we all know how to have a conversation. You can jump right in and start getting value without having to learn some complicated system.
That makes this accessible to so many more people.
Exactly.
That's fantastic. And it seems like they really tackled that emotional disconnect we were talking about earlier. The numbers on anxiety and confidence were really interesting.
They're saying there's a 35% reduction in anxiety levels and a 52% increase in entrepreneurial confidence.
Wow.
But even more telling, I think, is the 102% increase in people's willingness to talk about what's worrying them.
Interesting.
It shows you how powerful that supportive relationship with Brainy can be. People feel comfortable opening up and asking for help.
It's like that feeling of having someone in your corner when you're just starting out, which can make a huge difference.
It can.
So it sounds like all this leads to better outcomes overall.
The data seems to back that up.
Yeah.
They found a 43% increase in information retention, an 81% higher rate of people actually finishing the entire entrepreneurial journey, and a 36% faster time to market readiness.
So they're getting their product or service out there quicker.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those are some serious improvements across the board, from coming up with the idea to actually launching it.
It sounds like they've created a much smoother and more supportive experience for entrepreneurs.
That's the goal. Yeah.
Now, the source we got had a couple of examples of how this is actually playing out in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us one to paint a picture of how this works?
Sure. So they talked about this guy, Alex, who's into tech and has this great idea but doesn't really know the business side of things.
Classic.
By working with Brainy, he was able to turn his concept into a real SaaS business much faster than he could have on his own. Software as a service?
Right.
And get this, he used the no-code development tools built right in to actually create an MVP.
MVP.
Minimum viable product. It's basically a bare-bones version of his software with just enough features to get early users and feedback.
Gotcha.
And eventually, he even secured seed funding. So you see, Brainy helped him every step of the way.
From rough idea to investment. That's awesome. They also mentioned using this in universities, right?
Yeah. In entrepreneurship programs, they saw way more student projects getting funding, and students were building prototypes way faster, too.
Interesting.
It shows you how powerful this could be in education, helping students take what they've learned and actually apply it.
It really is like having a 247 business coach.
Yeah.
You mentioned the 10 steps in the entrepreneurial journey before.
I did!
Can you run through them really quick just so people get the full picture?
Oh, of course. So the 10 steps are: discovering your purpose, problem identification, feasibility assessment, solution generation, executive summary creation, prototype development guide monetization, and growth strategy journey summary course generation with ENXR and no-code application development.
It's pretty comprehensive. It's the whole process from spark to finished product.
It is.
Okay, so to wrap up this deep dive, what's the one big thing you want the listener to take away from all this?
I think the big takeaway is that this entrepreneur guide with Brainy represents a whole new way of thinking about starting a business.
Okay.
By using this really advanced AI to give personalized advice, emotional support, and practical tools in a really engaging avatar-led experience, they're trying to fix a lot of the problems that come with traditional business planning.
Yeah.
For the listener, that means a faster, less scary, and hopefully way more successful path to making their ideas real.
Absolutely. It sounds like a much more approachable and supportive way to do things, especially with that lower learning curve and the emotional support built right in.
And it makes you think, right, how could AI mentors like this change other fields that need expert guidance? Think about professional development, learning new skills, even personal coaching.
Yeah.
The possibilities are really limitless when you have an AI that remembers everything and actually understands how you're feeling.
It's pretty mind-blowing.
It is.
The source we got mentioned of the white paper with all the technical details for anyone who wants to go deeper.
Yeah.
It's definitely been a fascinating deep dive. Thanks for helping to break it all down.
My pleasure.
Lots to think about.